The next thing is we'll ask specifically 4 questions when we ask for comments. We did that this time. I will admit when I don't know an answer. I will eventually provide answers to this one particular question. So we'll go over that before the meeting's over. Eventually, maybe not this meeting, but eventually we'll use breakout rooms to create community. And then whenever I do Q&A, whenever I answer a question, I'm going to ask the author to get on live with me so that there can be back and forth, because as I've described many times, writing is only half of the message. There needs to be that verbal component to really understand what's being said. So I don't really understand the full question unless I also get the author live on stage. So I will. I'm going to bring contrarians on stage so they don't just get believers. And I'm going to bring Peter and Sydney on stage. They're actually already, Sydney's already on stage. I think Peter's joining soon. And then if this gets big enough, we'll also figure out a way to help you all track actions. But that's probably going to be you having to open up your own tool and maybe making suggestions of what tools to use. So that's, again, just showing you that we're really listening to the feedback. And now let's get into the instructions for this one. You've all seen this. Here are the docs to read. And then I encourage folks to write issues. And basically every single person that wrote an issue and submitted it here as of yesterday, I read it, I commented on it. We're going to live coach you today. So thank you for doing it. And with that, let's jump into the first one. You know, Sydney, you were the first one to get yours in. You're the first one I read. So let's have you get up on stage. Let's open up your issue, and then later we'll come back and answer the questions. But first, let's open up your issue. Let's go to that. Let's show that, Regina. Perfect. Thank you. So I've read it. I've heard I've watched your Loom video. So I know what the issue is. I've gotten both the written and the verbal. And now I don't know if you got a chance to read my comments.
I did.
Okay, fantastic. So let's now go into the next level, which are, what is your reaction to my comments? How do they resonate? And maybe they don't, or do you have any clarifying questions you want to ask for me? Because I just wrote them. I didn't say them. So you maybe didn't get the full, you didn't get the full communication from me.
Yep. The first thing it kind of made me slap myself in the face, which was we talk to our users all the time, and I completely neglected to even like write or think about like the user side of things. I mean, I have notes on the specific topic from the user side of things already too, but it was such a duh moment of like, oh, of course, like I should put myself in the shoes of our users. Like, obviously we're building for them. The whole purpose of this is for them. So instead of thinking about like what other smart people are thinking, or instead of thinking about what our team gets excited about, what are our users getting excited about, and what do they like using if they chose? And that was such a dumb moment that once I read it, I was like, that's totally the solution, right? Like I should put ourselves in those shoes and think about it that way. So that was my first reaction. The second was I did some of the readings that you recommended, went through some of that in more detail. But all in all, like I would say that was the biggest reaction I had was that duh moment.
Fantastic. I love it. And one of the things that we're not going to show here, but it would be valuable to show, is we could in the future crowdsource and have lots of people writing comments. And I think what you discover is you get lots of really great ideas, and there actually would be a lot of consensus. And you'd start to see that people would, like, my voice would not be unique. There would be a lot of people saying similar things. And what I found is that we have a tendency to value the advice or seek the advice of someone with more experience or older, but really the good ideas and the good perspective come from all around us. So your team members, and you're going to ask your customers, but your team members, your friends, your team members, especially because they have so much context on the business itself. And so that's what's great about this issue proposed solution in writing. You can solicit written feedback from many, many, many people. And then those that seem particularly interesting, you can follow up and have them also describe it to you in writing and interact with them. Again, you don't know that, but I promise you that my reactions are not any better than anyone else's. And at some point, we're going to prove that. All right. Well, that made it pretty simple, Sydney. And you can see how effective that interaction was. It was all async. There was no overhead. We did this in what, like 3 minutes?
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
And now also this is very shareable with your team. So now you can say, hey, this is what I'd like to do. And here's why. Boom. Your whole team can see this, as opposed to some verbal conversation, which gets instantly lost and can't ever be shared.
100%. Thank you.
You got it. You got it. Well, we're not done yet. Let's now go back to the main doc, and you had some questions there. So let's have you ask those questions. So the one you said, let's have you ask this question verbally, and then let me answer it.
Cool. So the basic question here is, there are, like, usually I'm thinking about a lot of different things, or the decision maker tends to be thinking about a lot of different things and has a lot of notes on that topic, has been thinking about that topic a lot. So if you have to make a decision, then other people may not know the other options that are possible. And so how do you inform other people about all the knowledge you know and all the context that you know, so they can also make an informed decision, or at least informed critique of the proposed solution that you share?
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, I have to admit, Sydney, I got distracted. I was looking at a question that was put in the chat on our last one. Can you actually please repeat exactly what you just said? I
Yes.
apologize. I won't do that.
Of course. Of
Right
course. So usually, if you are the one writing the issue proposed solution document, you have the most knowledge on that particular topic. So
Yeah.
you probably know all the options, the pros and cons of all the options. And so if you have to make a proposed solution, then you also probably know a lot more about that than other people. They may not know the other options and the pros and cons of those either. So how do you convey that information without overriding and without people, I guess, missing the context that they need to make an informed feedback or informed decision on the topic?
Yeah, it's a great point. So it's totally okay to share with people the other options, as long as you still clearly state, this is what I would do, or this is what I plan on doing. Because you don't want to make it be like, if they don't have as much context as you, then simply giving them a list of options with no proposed solution is putting them even in an even more, sort of position of not knowing how to react. But if you strongly say, this is what I plan to do, given my knowledge, they can simply react to that decision and say, hey, just want to let you know, if you do that, these other things will happen. Not sure if you were aware of those other things. And that's where their feedback becomes really valuable. Even if they don't have as much context as you do on the other options, they certainly have context on how your decision will affect their areas or their departments or their responsibilities. Does that resonate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then another important thing you bring up, lately I just read Reed Hastings' book, No Rules Rules. And I'm always amazed whenever I read these business books. They're always phenomenal. And they always have something really good. Every once in a while, there's one that's sort of like, oh my God, change. Most times they're just a reaffirmation of things that I already know work. But this one actually changed the way that I, things that what I believe and how I'm going to coach. It was 90% the same as what, all of my other writings are saying. But there was one part, there are a few parts that aren't. So I'm going to drop it in here. You'll see I've dropped it in a bunch of places here, only because I'm, recently fast. I've learned, I've changed my philosophy now because of it. And I'm going to open it up. And the key thing here is decision-making used to always be the CEO would basically make all the decisions. Well, eventually that becomes very ineffective. And so the big push from Jeff Bezos was, decide between type 1 and type 2, and basically everything's type 2. And therefore, as CEO, don't be the decision maker, but nominate or assign decision maker to other people whenever it's type 2. So pushing it down one layer. And then Reed Hastings took it one step further and said, forget that. Don't ever assign decision making, because decision making should come from the person who is proposing. They're actually the decision maker. All they're doing is soliciting basically dissent from other people before they go forward. Just like, it's almost like, hey, I'm about to do this. Am I crazy? And then you solicit both from up, like from 360-degree view of whether or not what the implications of your decision will be. And then you go forward. And so that's summarized sort of down here. And that actually matches very well, Sydney, with what you're saying, is that you have the most context. So who's ever writing up the issue proposed solution does have the most context. And therefore, likely, they should be the decision maker. Now, this is pretty radical when junior people start to propose things, but it also starts to create an owner's mentality. And a lot of times people are very frustrated, like, well, why doesn't my team like just take ownership of things? Well, because they're not put in the position of being responsible for the outcome. But when you put someone in the position of decision maker, they're responsible for the outcome. You watch how someone's mentality will suddenly change and they suddenly take on an owner's mentality. Right on. Sydney, does that resonate?
Absolutely. No, I love it.
Right on, my man. All right, let's keep going, because let me come back to the class, because that wasn't your only question. So can you please share with us the next question?
Yes. So oftentimes I'm the one writing a lot of these documents, and I do find that one thing you brought up that resonated really well was the loudest voice in the room problem. And so if I'm the one writing these documents, and they also know that I'm the one that has the most context because I'm the one writing the document, then why wouldn't how do you avoid that loudest room in the loudest voice in the room syndrome or problem, and allow for other people to feel like they can be comfortable sharing their feedback openly?
Yeah. This is, unfortunately, if you're the one proposing the solution, there's no real way around this. And so if you're actually proposing the solution, however, there's a step you can take just beforehand, which is you don't propose a solution. You simply say, hey, here's a situation we're facing as a company. Boom, please tell me what you think. Now, this is not an issue proposed solution write-up, so let's not say it is. It's simply a brainstorming or a feedback collection, however you want to describe it. And you can do it async, or you can do it live in the room, but you simply withhold what you think the answer is. And then people propose all kinds of solutions. You then take a pause, say thank you. You then go away, read them, or in real time, you can read them and understand them and make sure that people feel heard. Then go away, then write up your proposed solution, then come back and say, okay, now people react. And that's the only way that I know of to get people's true thoughts when you're the one who's eventually presenting the proposed solution. And of course, it also creates a tremendous amount of buy-in, because the problem with loudest voice in the room is that people don't share their thoughts, but then, and this is the bizarre part, feel that they weren't heard. Now you might go, well, that's crazy. You never said it. So how can I make you feel heard if you never said it? Well, people aren't rational. So don't ask such a rational question, because it doesn't matter what they did. It just matters how they feel. And so by doing this, by not sharing your proposed solution, asking for theirs first, then they actually say what they really think, then they feel heard. Then no matter what solution you come up with, they certainly feel more bought in. They may not feel fully bought in. Again, if they say do A and you do B, okay, you can make them feel as heard as you want. They still kind of wish you did A, but at least they feel like you took their idea into account. And that's much better than you simply announcing B without them ever feeling like you even understood what they were talking about. Does that resonate?
Yeah, we actually tried this immediately and saw immediate results. So that was perfect.
Wait a second. Okay, tell us about it. So how'd you do it and what were the results?
Yeah, so this ties to a later question actually that I had in the document too, which was how do we determine what to build in a sprint, or how do we determine what to execute in a sprint? And effectively in these sprints, oftentimes I just throw a bunch of ideas in there, and oftentimes people just kind of go with them. Like I always tell people, hey, add your ideas too, and I would share a document. I would put a bunch of ideas in there, and then they would just go with those ideas and say, okay, that's what we're going to work on this week, or here are like a few of those that we're just going to work on this week. But the people on our team are much smarter than I am. Like that's the whole reason why we hired them, right? Like I want their ideas in there because I think it's going to be a lot better than the ideas that I'm sharing. So we tested this out, and the exact result we'll see on Monday, because that's the next sprint. But we already started seeing people sharing their own ideas, which we created this brainstorming document. I did not put any ideas in there. We're doing it all async and then pasting it in afterwards. And people have already told me that they have ideas that they're putting in the documents. So so that already is bringing out people with new ideas.
Fantastic. I love it. And of course, you don't know yet whether that's energizing people,
right?
But we'll find that out in a few weeks. And my guess is that it will be.
Yeah, I think so too. But you know, even in the cases where people have on our team have suggested ideas on their own in the past, it's always better than the ones I've made. So I'm just excited that they are coming up with ideas, and they're thinking in that way too. That they're thinking every 2 weeks I have to bring ideas to the table, and training their brain in that way.
Fantastic. I love it. Awesome. Sydney, you've got a bunch more questions that I do want to go over, but I also want to spread the love around a little bit. So maybe let's jump to the next person. And then if there's time at the end, we'll come back and answer these questions with you. So, but thank you very much for writing all this out. This was awesome.
Thanks, Matt. This was great. I really appreciate it.
Right on.
Thank you so much, Sydney. I'm going to move you out now. And next up, we've got Peter.
Fantastic. Peter, I'm excited to talk to you. Peter, I always love seeing if I can convert a skeptic, and you are, which is beautiful. So thank you very much. And there was a question you asked, in the last one, which was, hey, this, Matt Mochary makes it all sound like you can have this, cushy, lovey, beautiful company where everything's easy and everyone loves each other. But that just feels like complete nonsense to me. And I just don't believe it. Sometimes, life is hard and you just got to deal with it, and building a company is hard and you just got to deal with it and move on. Is that kind of what you said?
A little bit. It was more in the sense of because it was during this episode when you were talking about not acting in anger or in fear and things like that. And I found, or at least I can kind of remember some situations when actually being kind of stern or rough was actually had a very good effect. And so basically, I was just wondering whether it is really possible to kind of run a company when everything is kind of warm and fuzzy, and there are no kind of harsh moments, or whether actually there are spaces where actually being harsh with someone, or I don't know, with harsh but strict or something like this makes sense. So that was the context of that question.
Yeah. So there's no doubt things happen in a company that are not appropriate. Like when I feel anger, there's intelligence in an emotion, but there's also exaggeration. So my brain, when it sees something that says, hey, that shouldn't be happening, I feel anger. So it's a good alert. Now, the way to stop that thing from happening, what my brain is telling me is go smash the person, yell at them, tell them what an idiot they are. And the result of that will have them going into fear and basically panicking. And maybe they'll do something in the short term. They'll suddenly pay attention doing the short term. But overall, it's kind of shutting their brain down. As opposed to, instead of doing that, saying, hey, in a calm voice, what you did actually isn't okay. This is what needs to happen. Here's why, because this will be much more beneficial for the company and for your success within the company. And in fact, I need this to happen. And I need, if you can make this happen by X date, will continue to be here at the company. If you can't, I just want to be very clear with you that we will not be able to keep you here in the company. And then, this is a performance improvement. Initially it's feedback, eventually it turns into performance improvement plan. And if these things don't occur, as you already foreshadowed, we'll have to let you go. And then the date comes and you're giving feedback all along the way, you're interacting. So there's no confusion as to whether their performance is acceptable, beyond acceptable, or not acceptable. They'll know exactly where they are because you're telling them each and every step of the way. And then when the date comes, we did this for 30 days. The performance has not improved. I really appreciate all your efforts here. Unfortunately, we need folks here who are actually performing at the level that we need. So I'm going to help you find a great role somewhere else. And then I do. And that the consequence speaks much louder than the anger. Anger will, again, will in the short term have people pay attention. But I haven't seen it change long-term behavior. As soon as the anger recedes, then the behavior recedes. But real consequences, no, people notice that.
Yeah, I definitely, so I definitely agree with the fact that just acting out of anger and just kind of like showing, like expressing your emotions by kind of like talking down on someone is not something that a leader should do, I guess, ever. I'm just thinking that sometimes rather than having the gentle side in the sense of like, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z, and actually like being very kind of stern. I think sometimes, at least what I've seen, is kind of like wakes the person up in the sense of like, oh, they actually mean it. It's serious. And I've even like had a situation when I was kind of like giving negative feedback to someone, and I did it in the sense of like I gave it and then I sent it in text. And only kind of after text he told me that, oh, this is actually serious, because somehow I didn't communicate. I had a hard time communicating the gravity of the situation in a conversation.
Well, that's actually, I think, a little bit different. That is verbal and writing. And there is no doubt that if you just say something verbally to someone, they're getting about 50% of the message. So writing is key. Like the two together complete the message. Because you're right, we as recipients, when we're hearing words, we're catching more of the emotional undertone. We're not really catching the words themselves. When we read writing, we're actually catching the words themselves. And it's the combination that delivers the full message. So I agree. I think feedback should always be both verbal and in writing. Now, the key there is, we're going to jump into another subject here quickly, is that what you don't want to do is get lazy and then just do the written feedback and that's it, and then deliver it asynchronously, because then someone gets that feedback, they're like, oh, what? And they get triggered and they get angry and they get fearful, and you don't see it. And when you don't see it, bad things can happen very quickly, because then they start to think, oh, Peter's an ass, he's a terrible guy. And within 48 hours, because of confirmation bias, they've amassed enough evidence that you really are the devil, that relationship is now destroyed or severely damaged. Whereas if you gave it in real time, so you write it up ahead of time, you then sit them down, say, okay, now I'd like you to read this, but you see their face, and then you say it verbally, but you see how they react. Or it's either you hear their voice or you see their face. Again, it doesn't have to be in person, it can be a Zoom call, it can even be a phone call. It just has to be synchronous, because you'll hear the emotion in their voice, even if it's on the phone. And then if they seem to like, yes, I agree with you, Peter, thank you for this, I appreciate it, great, you're fine. But if they react with anger or fear, you'll know it, and you'll be able to say, whoa, 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 whoa. I did not mean to trigger you. I did not mean to make you feel attacked. I'm giving this because I want you to succeed. And this, I think, is the essential ingredient for both you to succeed and the company to succeed. And then you can make sure that their fear gets allayed or their anger gets allayed. But again, if you don't see it, you can't adjust.
Makes sense.
Right on. So I like that you're now, would you be willing to give feedback both verbally and written from now on?
Yeah, I think I did it like way before, and I saw how it worked, and it was like, yeah, it makes perfect sense to do it. I didn't do it like you were saying, in the sense of like I saw the person read it. I basically like told him what I thought, and then told him that, hey, I'm going to send you this written down so you can kind of like digest it at your own pace. And then he kind of like responded. So I guess what you're suggesting is different, and I can see how it will be better.
Well, it's just a little safer. Like the good news is you already delivered it verbally. So you already saw his initial reaction. And then we delivered the writing. It would be unlikely that he would have a vastly different reaction. The problem is when you don't know what the reaction is, that's the only, and it could be 99% of the time it's fine, but the 1% of the time it isn't, and you don't know it. So it's just a safety thing, that's all. Okay, but this is great. All right, Peter, now let's jump into your issue. And so friend as an investor, I love this one. This was so good. Did you, so again, because you put in a video, I had both the writing and the written and the verbal. So I feel like I understood your issue. And then did you get a chance to read my response?
I did, yeah.
Excellent. So now I didn't give it verbally. Would you like me to give it verbally and then react, or would you have clarifying questions for me? Actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to give it verbally.
Very, very much so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. And then, so let's make sure that we're on, if Regina, you could go to my comments so everyone could sort of read along as I say it. But basically what's happened here is that you've got a friend who was your initial investor, and then you had what you thought was a standard deal, YC terms, which I would argue actually isn't standard at all. I would argue that YC, takes a huge piece of flesh, and the reason they're able to get away with it is because it's such a stamp of approval. In fact, it creates tremendous value by being in this cohort of these incredible companies that you now feel sort of can learn from, and you can sort of feel the competitive urge with, and it builds such good habits in founders. I don't know that your friend who gives you money is delivering any value, frankly, but certainly not YC level value. So in my mind, he got a smoking deal already. And now I understand he then got treated better, or a way that made him feel better. Someone else sort of kissed his ass a little bit more, told him words that made him feel good about himself even more. And then he came back to you and said, hey, I want to feel better about myself with you. You didn't make me feel as good as that other person did. Now, I got to tell you something. This is his emotion. This is not your problem. He is feeling sadness. He is feeling anger. That's his issue. They're giving him bad advice. He needs to go feel that sadness, feel that anger, and get it out of his body, because it's messing with his mind. But then he makes a request that he thinks will make him feel better, which, by the way, it won't. But it's coming from a place of anger. And so it's a crazy thought. The only thing crazier than that thought is if you respond to it. That would be truly crazy. He already has an absolutely smoking deal, and to give him even more would be insane, because now the company has progressed. Now you're no longer this early stage, just an idea. Now you're a real operation. You wouldn't, the early employees that you had, I don't know are you in Russia?
No, well, I'm in Italy now, but I'm from Poland.
Okay. And are you giving equity in your company to employees or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So has the company progressed since the stage when he invested?
Yes.
Excellent. So the equity that you're giving to new employees now, is it less than the equity that you were giving back then?
In the sense of, I guess, value of it. Yeah.
No, I mean percentage. Like the value, you're probably giving like, $10,000 per year to each new employee, but it's fewer shares because the value of has the value of the company grown? That's maybe what I meant.
No, it's not liquid. We haven't raised anything after that. So it's not, it hasn't been developed. Well, like when we fundraise right now, it's going to be on a way higher valuation. That's what what
I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. So you haven't fundraised, but the value of the company is going up, whether there's a mark to market or not.
Yeah.
So you gave employees back here this much equity when the value is here. Now that the value is going up, each new employee is obviously going to get less percentage. But it's the same current value. But the old employees, their value is now going up here. So if they came to you and said, hey, listen, I want more equity because I just, feel like it, what would you say to them? You said, wait a second, you're completely out of market right now. I can go hire the same level of talent for half the price because your equity is worth this much. You don't get more. You're already above market. Well, the same thing applies to your investors. They're already above market because the company has already increased in value. And then there's the idea that your responsibility to everybody is to make this company succeed. And you've got limited resources. And with those resources, that's all you have to play with. So every time you make a decision that is in the best interest of taking care of an individual's emotions, but isn't in the best interest of the company, you're being disloyal to the company, and you're being disloyal to everybody else. And you're being disloyal to all the people who aren't feeling these wild emotions. Now, it's okay to feel the emotions. It's not okay to act on them. And that's what he's doing. So if you look at it from that lens, I think this becomes a lot easier to say no to, which is, hey, I've got limited equity. I need to use it to recruit the best team in the world. I can't give it away to people who simply feel sad or who feel that they're my friend. In fact, even doing this in order to keep your friendship would be a disloyalty to the company. But I will also share with you that if this person, if he's going to end his relationship with you, his friendship with you over this, that's not a friend you want. That's not a true friend. That's not a friend who's also thinking about your position. In fact, he's not thinking about your position at all. And so that's not a two-way street. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What is your reaction? And oh, sorry, one more thing. The key here I found is when people do have a sadness or an anger or fear, the easiest way for you to help get them out of it is just to acknowledge it. And I know this sounds crazy, but it works like magic. And maybe I'll drop in a writing which is even more direct about how to do this. That feedback has a part, the acknowledging part, but I've also have a write up here, which is just the acknowledging part. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. I'll drop it in there so that right here, I'll drop it in that so you can see how to make people feel heard. And all this is repeating back to him what you think he's feeling until he says yes. So I'm not exactly, I'll try it on you, Peter. Are you feeling, like my guess is right now, you're like, Matt, well, when it came to the, going back onto the issue around making, sometimes you just need to be stern. My sense is that you're thinking, Matt, it's fine there are moments when I need to let people know how serious I am, because if I don't let them know how serious I am, then they're grading like on 0 to 10, how important is this? And if I just be very calm and very peaceful, then they kind of grade it at like a 1 or a 2, and they don't notice. But if I give them feedback and there's like intensity and there's like writing and a text afterwards, and they see I'm serious, then it's like, oh shit, this is an 8 or a 9. I need to really pay attention here. And that's important, Matt. And that gets results. Is that right, Peter?
You're kind of paraphrasing what I feel about this. It's
about the last one, not this one, about the last one.
Yeah. You're exaggerating, but to some extent, that's what it is. It's not like I feel like I want to, because I actually don't. I hate conflict, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm kind of like screaming at somebody or anything like that. But I've also seen it make effect in the sense, like even on me, like somebody giving me stern feedback, and me kind of like seeing I was such a dumbass. I didn't see something, and then correcting my behavior then. So it's kind of like yeah. So it was about the gravitas of kind of like what you're saying, not being kind of like always very mellow and very friendly.
Got it. So let me alter it and let me see if I got it right. So Peter, it sounds like it's about just, you have to let people know when you're giving them feedback, you have to let people know how serious it is. And if it's serious, I have to let people know that it's serious. And in fact, when I receive feedback, and it's important for me that the person sharing it with me also lets me know how serious it is, because I have a million things going on. I need to know which ones I really need to pay attention to. And so I need to have a volume level. I need to both deliver a volume level and receive a volume level, so I know where to prioritize this feedback that I'm getting, or the feedback that I'm giving to them. Is that right?
That's right.
Perfect. Now, let me ask you this. does it feel a little better? Do you feel heard? Do you feel I now understand your position?
I do, yeah.
Okay, great. If you were feeling lots of anger, my posit is that your anger would now be reduced. So this is the only magic tool that I have for when someone's in anger or fear, how to reduce that, what you can do. They can do a lot of things. They can go meditate. They can go, ask questions of where this is coming from and do the deep inner work, but you can't do that for them. But what you can do is you can make them feel heard. And I would encourage you to try that and experiment with it. This is like a magic tool. And all my coachees do it now. We're all sold on it. I do it all the time. And it just freaking works. And so I'd encourage you to try it with him. There are other ways, I don't know them. This is making people feel heard is so effective that I just use it over and over and over again. And it works every time. And so if you discover other methods, please let me know, but I encourage you to try this. Would you be open to?
Of course, yeah. Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah.
Because I had a conversation with him because I thought it was about him feeling appreciated, and I expressed that, but I didn't see it work. But I think what you're telling me is it's not really about him feeling appreciated. It's about the whether it's sadness or like bad emotions that he has, and it's about me trying to bring them out and kind of like show him that I know that he's feeling them. Is that what it is?
Yeah, understand. Now he may deny it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say, hey, you're feeling sadness, because he'll say, no, what are you talking about? Instead, I would say, hey, I really want to understand your position. And I imagine you're having thoughts like, and then you can say what the thoughts are in his brain, but I wouldn't label the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because then he'll feel like, oh, yeah. And then we're getting a good question for Regina in the sideline, because I admitted that I'm a one-trick pony and I do this all the time. And I do this with Regina all the time. And Regina, let's get you on here. Do you ever see through this and go, oh, he's just pulling the routine on me? And
You want the truth?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's effective for 95% of our conversations. And then I think because I talk to you every day, Matt, and we work together on a constant basis, there is a point where it becomes very repetitive, or there is a time where I think you focus so much on trying to make me feel heard that I don't really feel like the emotion is embodied on your part. Like you're just saying everything kind of the way you're speaking right now. And so sometimes I do wonder, and the reason actually why I think you admitted you were a one-trick pony was because I said, Matt, I just feel like you went through your whole routine again just to try to make me feel heard. And all I have to do is say yes. And then you're just like, okay, cool. I don't really feel heard. And you're like, yeah, well, I don't really have a solution beyond that. I'm a one-trick pony.
Oh, no, but you bring up a good point. It's Matt, you're hearing my thoughts, but you're not feeling my emotion.
Yeah.
And so that is the next level, is for me to actually show that I feel the emotion. And you're going to know that in my voice. So if I just repeat it back with monotone, like, doesn't do it for me.
In
But if
reality,
you repeat it back
Matt,
the actual way that I feel, then maybe. We'll see. So you and I, Regina, let's practice this. This is really good feedback for me. Let's see if we can take this to the next level. And Anastasia, I think, also just wrote a comment, which is absolutely key. A lot of times what people do is someone says something to me, and I could say, yes, I understand what you said. And that does not make people feel heard, because they have no idea if what you claim to understand really is what they were saying and feeling. So it's only when you repeat back what they say, and repeating back, I think, is sort of like the basic version, because oftentimes people don't say what they're really thinking. They say like the polite version. but imagining what's really going on in their head and stating that. That's the advanced version, including swear words. And like Peter, when I did it, you're like, Matt, you went too far. Like, I didn't really think all that. But even when I go too far, it shows you that it's okay to have those thoughts, because I went too far, but I wasn't upset about it. I was totally okay with it. And so now you know that even if you do have an even stronger thought of feedback for me, you can give it transparently, because I'm not going to get offended. So there's value in actually exaggerating a little bit. The best is nailing it, but exaggerating a little bit is okay.
Yeah.
Really good comment, Anastasia. Thank you very much. All right, Peter, in the interest of making sure we get everyone, I'm going to jump to the next person. Thank you very much, Peter. That was awesome.
Of course. Thank you.
Right
Thank
on.
you, Peter. All righty. And next up, we've got, is it Darpan? Is that how you say your name?
Yeah,
Hi, welcome.
thank you so much.
Awesome.
So I think, Matt, what do you think about spending maybe 30 seconds to recap an issue proposed solution in the interest of everybody kind of getting up to speed? How do you feel about that?
Perfect. Sounds great to me. So we're going to jump into the issue pro solution, or should we answer the questions first?
Let's do a 30-second recap. Darpan, if you want to just give a 30-second summary of what your issue proposed solution is before we jump into the questions, I think that'll be helpful for everybody to sort of be on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. So the good thing is that the question that I've asked and the issue and solution that I've talked about both are same, like on the similar lines. So it wouldn't take double. And second thing, I did not understand like if they were supposed to be different. So I just made both of them same. So I'll talk about the problem that I've spoken about here. So we are on the verge of making a decision where, say, we have a line of business which is going to generate high revenues, but the sales cycles are long and the delivery method of delivery is quite manual, which means that like, the revenue is quite aligned with how much efforts we need to put as compared to being exponential. And on the second side, we are trying to build a product which is going to give us that exponential edge where for like we don't need to put that kind of effort with to make more revenues, but the speed will be lower. And of course, the market is crowded at this point of time. So I'm finding it hard to make this decision where, say, we leave one line of business that is already working to jump on something that is bigger. Obviously, we are trying to run both of them in parallel, but obviously resources are limited. So yeah, that's the problem that I'm talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so let's talk a little bit more about, well, this is an age-old question. And I think this must have come in after 9 o'clock yesterday, because it looks like I didn't comment on this and I didn't see this one. I saw your question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I screwed that up. So the link was wrong.
That's okay. That's okay. If that's the case, if it's okay with you, Regina, I think what I'd rather do, rather than respond to the question, since I didn't have time to, prepare and don't want to take the time to real time prepare now, what I did prepare was answering his questions on the main class doc. So let's go to that if that's okay.
Totally fine. And right here already.
Okay, great. And then, so Darpan, let's have you ask, can you, ask these questions verbally, and then let me see if I can respond.
Yeah, definitely. So I need to repeat the questions. My question again?
What your question is, for me, except here, except when D gets in, like, I'd like to understand more about this, what part doesn't resonate with you?
Oh, okay, that one. So there was only one part. So so in Rapid, there was the D, that is decision maker. So there was one point where, say, they were supposed to call in a meeting and say, repeat what decision they are going to make and ask if anyone has any comments on that. And if they ask any question, like the decision maker asked any question and those questions don't get answered, then the solution was that call another meeting and get those answers again, and then set up another meeting. That's what it was. I was thinking that in this case, I would rather ask for questions beforehand, and I will set a limit so that, this whole process does not get out of hands, and I will get all of the questions or concerns they have. And once that is done, then I will set up a meeting once I've got all my answers.
I must have written it badly, because that's actually the way the process is. So what happens is someone writes up a Rapid, a bunch of people async write in their comments. Now, by the way, I just talked to Coinbase yesterday, and the way they do their rapids now is they won't even have the meeting
Mhm.
until the first rapid has everybody's written comments on it. So that when the meeting occurs, we're just all reading the comments that people have already made on the rapid. At that point, if the decision maker in that next 15 to 20 minutes of reading and clarifying questions with the different responders still feels that they don't have enough information to make a decision, then they have to declare, I need answer to this question, and this question. I want Susie to answer this question. I want George to answer this question. I want Sam to answer this question. Please go write out the answers. And I want to see those responses prior to the next meeting. And as you say, and I won't even schedule the next meeting until I get those responses.
Mhm.
That's absolutely key. You never want to just say, hey, I don't have enough meeting, go get this information. And then at the next meeting, share with me the responses, but I don't know whether you even like research them or not. You're absolutely right that synchronous meetings are so expensive that you don't want to have them until you know that they're going to be worthwhile. And the only way you know that they're going to be worthwhile is if the information you need is already pre-written and you can see it. That's it. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Now, let's go to your next question. Oh, let me ask you this. Does that resonate? I mean, I think it must, because I'm just agreeing with you.
Yes, it does. It does, because like you said that this is what makes sense, and it made sense to me as well. So there is no point of disagreement here. So I totally agree.
Now I just have to change the wording so I get that message across in the write-up.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Excellent. Let's go to the next one then.
Mhm.
So this one right here. Sometimes the problem is not the process decision-making, but having the guts. So can you please tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the write-up that I was explaining like moments ago. So I was thinking about that, and I was probably dreaming about it, and I found something that the problem when it comes to decision making is not always the team, it's me. So the problem I have is that few of the things why I cannot make this decision, because I think the problem that I'm talking about here, I can take that decision. Why I'm not taking that decision? Because I don't want it to go wrong. One. Second, I want to take the most perfect decision, which is another classic one I could say. And a third one is that since I want it to be perfect, so I want to see all the information available before making the decision, which is not a great idea, because you have to make decisions without knowing everything. So I think these were the problems I was facing, why I was not able to take that call. Otherwise, everything else can be managed. But yeah, this is why I was not able to take the decision.
Yeah. So I think it's a great point. And there's two matrices I think of. I think of one, how can you collect more information efficiently before making a decision? And two, how can you take this decision and give it to somebody else who may already have more information and perspective that you do? So let's start with how you get more. Let's call it horizontal versus vertical. I'm just making up those terms for have it be graphical. And so if we think about horizontal, how can you get more information? There are basic steps. Again, Sydney, we talked about it with Sydney, which most of us don't think of until someone just says it. And then so you can experiment with it. Experiment one is when it's just an idea, go collect feedback like, hey, I don't even have a solution here, but can you guys please give me what would you do in this situation? Two, once you have a proposed solution saying, hey, I think I'd like to do this. Now you, my team, tell me, what you think of that. Tell me if you disagree. And if you disagree, what you would do instead. And three, and this is the key, if you're really feeling fear, think of some way to test this. Is there some way to come up with some kind of, this is hard. I mean, it's often not easy to figure out a way to test, but even testing a piece of the response that's going to occur in the issue of, providing a service versus building a product. How you don't know yet how much it's going to cost to build a product, whether the customers are going to like the product, how much they're going to pay for the product. So this is classic with product building. Is there a way you've already talked to the customers, you already know their problems, you already think you have a solution for their problems, but you're not sure. So is there a way to build something manual, something no code, something that's just representative, and stick it in front of a few people and say, if this existed, would this solve your problem and would you buy it? And just have them play with it and then see the reaction. That's a test. You always want to do that before you actually spend months of development time building a solution. And the only time you know how customers interact is when you actually deliver them the full-fledged product. And what if they go, you know what? It's missing this key piece, and without that, it's useless. And you're like, oh my God, all my work is wasted. So that you're feeling fear for a reason. You're feeling fear because part of your brain is saying, I don't have enough information. So the answer is to go try to get more information. And the first two ways are easy. The third way is a little harder, but there's a huge amount of intelligence on your team. And just knowing that your team is given all of the information that they have to you will also allay your fear, because one is you want it to succeed, but you also don't want to feel stupid in front of your team. And what if they had different thoughts and they go, see, we told you all along, but you didn't even know what their thoughts were. At least if you solicit their thoughts, you'll know everything that they're thinking. And if you all are thinking the same thing, you all make the decision, and you make the decision, at least no one can say, hey, you're an idiot. That was a terrible, we all knew that was a terrible decision at the time. And so it lay that fear. Does any of this resonate?
Yes, definitely. And I was quite amused that you mentioned that that get the information, like in order to collect the information, get something out, like a no-code solution or something, and ask for feedback, ask for opinions. And this is exactly what we are doing right now. The thing is that, you do so many things that you just don't get the conviction of whether this is actually a good idea or not, because you are seeing all these things for the first time. You're doing all these things for the first time. So you have no idea or conviction that this is the right thing to do. So I totally agree to what you're saying.
Awesome. Awesome. And
There are two great questions in the chat, Matt. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but the first one is from Michael, and he's asking, after summarizing what someone said and getting a confirmation of understanding from them, people usually want an answer or decision right away. Is there an effective way to communicate that you will act or make a decision on your own time?
Sure. Literally just that. So I mean, we should, let's drop in, the way that I respond to feedback is that I go through what I call the 5 A's. So this is jumping around a little bit. This is doing basically back to a prior discussion, but let me drop that in the chat, and I'll drop the doc in so you guys can see it.
I dropped it in already.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so first, again, I go through this piece where I acknowledge it, repeat it back until they feel heard. That's the most important piece. Then I say whether or not I accept it. And I only accept it if it really resonates with me. And are you talking about decision or feedback? Feedback, I say if it resonates with me. Decision, I guess the same thing. I guess on decision, I say whether that their comments resonate with me. But it's totally okay if it's a decision. It's like what we're going to actually do here. It's totally okay to say, hey, thank you all for all your comments. I've obviously acknowledged them all. Now I need time to process. So I'm going to take 48 hours. Then I'm going to write up my proposed solution, and then I'm going to share it back with you for further comment. That's totally okay. Similarly, on the feedback, if it were feedback that's being talked about, I would acknowledge, hey, you feel anger, and you wish that I had given you more equity, and you wish that I treated you more like a team member, until they say yes, and then I say, okay, I actually don't accept that, and here's why. And then I would state my position of my perspective, what's going on with me. And hopefully I state it in such a compelling way that they realize, and I put them in my shoes, and then they see why I can't accept this feedback. Because what you never want to do is simply accept people's feedback no matter what, because then it becomes tyranny of the feedback giver, and that we can't allow. But if I do accept, then I will declare what action I'm going to take, and I'll put it in an agreement tracker. I'll put it in Asana, so you can all see that whether or not I actually go ahead and follow through and do the action. But I think the question is, how do you communicate that you'll make the decision on your own time? Simply tell them that. But it's key to tell them what the timeline is. I will make the decision by X date. I will let you know what my decision is. In fact, I will even let you comment on it before we finalize it, so we can alter it if needed. let them know what the process is. Don't just say, hey, I'll make it on my own time. See ya. Yeah, that would be frustrating for anybody to hear.
Right. And there's one more question tied into Darpan's issue proposed solution. I think you outlined this over here that I'm sharing on my screen. And Alexis would like to know, is this similar to Steve Blank's customer discovery and customer development process?
So I haven't read that book, but given that it names the word customer 2 times, my guess is that it's all about talking to customers and asking them what their problems are, and then building solutions for those problems, because that's the classic. I mean, there are 16 different books that all say that same thing. So my guess is that's what Steve Blank is writing, and if so, then yes, it is his process. But really, it's just this has become an age-old problem, because our instinct is we sit here in a room and we have an idea and we get excited, and that excitement tells us to just move forward. And so excitement also sometimes gives us bad advice, whereas the real answer is to build things for real people with real problems, who have real money, who will pay that money for the solutions to their real problems, as opposed to some mythical world out there. And even, a lot of times it's, when you're building a solution, an enterprise solution for, companies, you're not actually building a solution for a company. You're building a solution for a human being who works at that company, who's making the buy decision to write you a check. You're solving an individual's problem. Now you may be solving the head of marketing's problem because they don't have a way of tracking their ad spend, but you're also solving the CFO's problem, who needs to approve the spend for the head of marketing. So know each of what their problems are, which are different, by the way, and then come up with a solution that satisfies the head of marketing, gives them the information they need, but also gives the pricing in a way that the CFO can swallow, that kind of thing.
Awesome. In the interest of time, we should move on now, but thank you so much, Darpan, for sharing your issue proposed solution.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Darpan.
much. Thank you.
Right on.
Amazing. And next up, we've got Anastasia. Anastasia, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Very similarly, should we do a quick 30-second recap? Let's really keep it to 30 seconds. And then you can ask your questions. Matt, you've got something to say?
Actually, on this one, I'd like to go in a little bit different direction, because Anastasia wrote up an issue that really already happened. She already implemented the solution. She already knows the results. And so I think there's a little bit less tension there.
Mhm.
I think the more interesting thing here is, Anastasia, is your questions. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to go through your
Yeah.
questions first.
Yeah, actually, that's right. I in fact added 2 more questions as we've been talking, because that's really what was operating and what was animating me very much when I was solving this problem. And it's still what animates me today, is like, how do I get people to see all the different siloed problems as like one big orchestra that can be solved as a whole, and to get people to let go of some of their loyalties to the ways that they're doing things, just to see a bigger picture and say, wait a minute, these are all aspects of the same problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the question is, you see it, but then other people don't see it. You're wondering how to get people to see what you're seeing. Is that right?
Partly, but also, if you are not directly responsible for setting strategy for the entire, say, division, but you happen to see it and you have ownership over a pretty large aspect of it, and you kind of want to get other leaders, executives who are very tied to what they're doing, to say, hold on a second, if I work with this person way across in a different team, and this other person who's adjacent to me, we might actually like completely move the needle, as opposed to just like, meet an OKR.
Yes. Okay. So I think what you're saying is, Matt, I don't control the strategy. So I can't force people to behave this way. But I think if they did behave this way, the overall result would be much better. Is that right?
Exactly. That's right.
Okay. That's exactly what, in my view, issue proposed solution is used for. I'm going to write out, hey, here I see a problem that we're all focusing individually on our piece, but we're losing the thread. So if you, head of engineering or head of marketing or head of whatever, would go do these 2 actions, go talk to this person on a monthly cadence and go write up a report that shows what you're doing in plain English. And if I do these things, and if you over there do these things, so make it very concrete of what each person needs to do, then the result will be this, and I think it will be a whole lot better. So that's my proposed solution. And if you do that and you share it in writing with people, then they can look at it and go, oh my gosh, this makes complete sense. The thing is, people are smart, but they need a presentation of an actual solution. If you simply say, hey, we've got a problem, people will go like, yeah, we've got a problem, and I don't know how to fix it. So if you're the CEO, you're the loudest voice in the room, then you can sort of solicit feedback generally. But if you're not the CEO, you're not the loudest voice in the room, then people want to know what's the answer here, because I don't have time to sort of figure out what this answer is. If you already have in your head, tell me, and then I can react to it. So I think the writing is the really powerful thing. The challenge though is that if you say, hey, I think you should do this and you should do that, and you should, like, we have a problem and you guys need to fix it because you're causing the problem, people can very quickly get defensive and go, screw you, for who the hell do you think you are? And no way. So that's why when I write up my issue proposed solution, I always have this interim step of what did I do to create it? So people realize, wait a second, Matt's not blaming me. Matt's actually taking ownership for what he actually did. Like, I never spoke of this before. I never wrote up a proposed solution. I never did the steps myself. I never did this. I never did that. And people go, yeah, you're right. You never did those things. Good. I'm glad you recognize that. And then they're much more open to hearing my solution because they don't feel judged. That's what I found. Does that answer or not really?
It starts to get there. The other part of it is, so I'm very, this resonates a lot because I tend to approach things through an overarching narrative. So I did kind of like, hey, here's this narrative of how things are evolving in different departments here. We could all work together. But then, and people can get on board, but then you come across this idea of just entrenched organizational inertia. That's like, well, this is just the way we do things. And how do you then go about the process of like change management, culture management,
Yeah, well,
operational
point,
changes?
At a certain point, you need authority. So again, that's why the issue proposed, you don't have authority. Let's say you're the head of engineering, you don't have authority over the head of marketing. You make a suggestion like, head of marketing, if you would just do this, I'll do this and you do this and it'll be better. And the head of marketing may even agree and even say, yes, I'll do it. And then just doesn't. Well, that's when you would give that person feedback. Hey, you agreed to do this, but you're not doing it. And then the person reacts like, yeah, I'm not doing it. Not gonna. Okay. Now you need to do what I call clean escalate. You need to say, you say to the person, listen, this isn't okay. We made an agreement. You're not following it. Now we need to go to what I call the apex manager, and we need to go together. At the same time, I'll share my position, you share your position, and we'll let them decide. And now that's if an agreement was already made. If an agreement hasn't been made, like the head of marketing doesn't even agree to these actions you state, you're not, you name the decision maker, the apex manager, saying, you CEO, here's my proposed solution. I think you should be the decision maker because this involves many different departments. We can't have any one single department make this decision. You're the one that needs to make it. And then the CEO, if the CEO does, the CEO has the ability to enforce that those actions actually get taken. You can't fire the head of marketing, but the CEO can.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Does that resonate?
Yeah, that's actually what I ended up having to do, is start to talk to the like very executive level authorities at this media network to get them on board to start moving the needle.
Yes. And here's the odd thing. If you're in engineering and you're an IC on a project and you're working with a product manager who is also an IC in product, and you're both 5 levels down, and you have a conflict with that person and you can't agree, this is the crazy thing. The only effective path to get resolution is to clean escalate to the, what I again call the apex manager, the person who has authority over both you and the other person. And oftentimes that is the CEO. So first you can say, listen, let's bring this together, this issue to our managers, but they often won't agree. And then let's bring it to their managers, but they often won't agree. Let's bring it to their managers, the head of engineering, the head of product, but they often won't agree. And then unfortunately, it lands with the CEO. And you may say, well, that's crazy that the CEO has to decide every single conflict at the IC level between departments. And the answer is yes. And this is actually why CEOs need to keep their calendar incredibly open, because they need to be able to put out these fires. It'll only take 15 minutes. You present to me your side, you present to me your side, boom, here's the decision. Okay, great, we're done. But if they don't have that 15 minutes available, there's no one else in the organization who can actually unblock here. And it actually doesn't happen that often. But if the CEO doesn't make themselves available, eventually the whole machinery grinds to a halt. Does that resonate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very much.
Right on. All right. I want to see if we can get to everybody here. And we have a few. We've got RJ and Greg and Alexis. I think let's keep going if that's okay.
Thank you
just
so much,
make
Anastasia. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Anastasia.
Next up, we've got Alexis. So you are officially up on the hot seat. Welcome.
Alexis, I love that you added an extra visual. I went ahead and so Alexis, can you please share with us this issue verbally, and then I'll explain what that little video is, which is incredibly cool. Yeah, can you please explain this to us?
Yeah, so the issue I have is that I've been placed as a CEO. The founder who relinquished control of the company is now the head of sales. He has a wealth of industry knowledge, great contacts, beloved in the company, but the company was getting stale and was stagnant. And the junior employees are thrilled that he is still there, but they're really thrilled with the transparency and the movement of the company. And the issue is we want to roll out a new product in 2022. The board is saying, let's diversify, let's get that out there. But the head of sales / founder is resistant to that because he'd like to really see it as he thinks it'll spread sales too much and will ultimately hurt the other products, and that we should wait. Me and the rest of the team would like to move on, and I'd like to get a consensus to move on without stepping on him too much, and not be the dictator leader who just says, hey, this is what we're doing. So that's basically the problem. And I feel like a baby water buffalo being torn between a pride of lions and two aggressive alligators.
So I encourage everyone to watch that video. It's about 8 minutes long. It is truly a marvel of nature. It is awesome. We don't have to watch it now. Let's not watch it now.
All right,
It is
got
8 minutes
excited.
long. Exactly.
We'll also have to talk about what happens at the end of that video. So,
right. Eventually, the buffalo come in and save the baby. So it's everything, the fairy tale ending occurs, which is great. And you can have the fairy tale ending here as well, Alexis. So the real issue at play is you say, I want there to be consensus. Yeah. And that's a very noble desire. Unfortunately, it is impractical at the speed at which business needs to occur, because consensus is basically giving veto power to any individual that doesn't agree. And that's a huge amount of power to give away to anyone, including the founder. And so my solution for this has been, we're not going to have consensus. We're not going to have a democracy. Instead, we're going to have a benevolent dictatorship. And the benevolence is that dictatorship will move around. So it's not going to be one decision maker. All of us in the company at some point will be a decision maker. And we're going to try to push those decisions as low into the company as possible. But there will be a decision maker, and that person will solicit feedback, solicit opinions, solicit dissent, hear the dissent, really acknowledge it, but then they will make the decision, period, end of story, because no decision is worse than a bad decision. And in this case, it sounds like the founder, while they have named you CEO, they actually have not given you authority. Or it's not explicit because you don't know that you have authority. In a normal operating environment where the CEO has clear authority, the CEO says, I'm going to name the decision maker for this decision, and then that person decides. And if it's an existential one, a type 1, you name yourself and you decide. But that doesn't seem like it's going on here. So my recommendation would be to have, yes, Alexis.
Yeah, so in that situation, am I just kind of trying to not break any eggshells here, or step on eggshells, and include him? Because he's the type of person who's like, I've been doing this for 25 years. My gut just tells me this. The junior staff is saying, yeah, well, that might be an old version of this, but we need to, make decisions. And it's the way I feel. So should I be coaching him?
Absolutely.
Right.
No, you should be listening to him. There's probably a lot of value in what he's saying, but you need to have the conversation with him about, first is, what's his name, by the way? First name. I don't need last name.
Brian.
Brian, you brought me on as CEO. In order to operate the company, I need authority to operate the company. So I'm going to listen to all your feedback. I'm going to take it very seriously. Your wisdom is huge here. But I also need, if you're going to make me responsible for the outcome of the company, you also need to give me the authority to make decisions and operate the company. Do we have that agreement? And he'll say, yes, of course. Okay, that's in theory. Now, in specific, Brian, on this issue, I am going to name myself decision maker. I'm going to acknowledge and listen to your thoughts, but in the end, I'm going to make the decision myself. Are you on board with that? This is the test of whether or not our overall theory, our overall agreement is really true. And then he'll say, yes, okay, great. Because the reality is the person who has ultimate authority is the person who can hire and fire. And if the founder has hired you as CEO, but can still fire you, then that person is the ultimate authority. So he's got to relinquish. Yes.
It was actually the board who put me in.
Okay.
And because he sold most of the company, but they recognized his value and his skill set, and he wanted to continue. He loves the brand and he loves what they created. He's the head of sales because that's what he always gravitated towards, and why the company had become stagnant. While I have a 360 view and I'm coming in with fresh ideas. Thank you, Matt, Regina. And, and the younger staff really responds to that, but I have to walk carefully around him. But I'd like to incorporate your.
Why do you have to walk carefully? It sounds like you feel fear around if he gets upset, what he will do.
The fear is not so much what he will do, because I can speak to him freely. The fear is if he leaves, we lose a lot of sales.
Perfect. That's it. So you want to make sure you want to do this and you want to retain him because he's really effective.
Yeah.
Perfect. Would you be willing to share that with him in the exact same way you shared it with me? And here's how I would share it, Alexis. I would say, Brian, I feel fear. I have this thought that you're an amazing salesperson. You are incredibly effective for us. I really want you to be here. And at the same time, we have this decision to make, which I want to make the decision to move forward. And I know you don't agree with that. And my thought is that you're going to be so upset that you're going to up and quit. And I'd like to, and I don't want that to happen. So I just want to share that thought with you. Brian, can you please, how do you react to that thought? And then you'll know. And by the way, he'll tell you, he'll say, yes, if you make that decision, I'll quit. Or he'll say, wow, Alexis, thank you so much for sharing that with me. You know what? Even though I don't agree with it, if you do that, I won't quit. And then you'll know one way or the other. You can ask, I've done this before. I've asked people this question before. And
so in a way, it's a kind of a reckoning. You're putting everything out on the table and you're saying, I'm fearful of this, not you, but of this, which will cascade into this. And I think that's really important, is to say, I hear this is my issue. He's a bit old school, where I think that the last time he had emotion was probably when he was 9. You know?
I mean, the last time he showed it.
Yeah, the last time he showed it. And to him, it's like, look at these kids, weakness. and hard charging, guy. And I come with a more holistic approach. Again, it is a bit of fear and it's a bit of discovery on my part.
Perfect. Would you be willing to go ask him?
Yes. I mean, of course, because I want this resolved, and I need to get it resolved before the first, the next board meeting in early December, because the board's going to ask me,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah. Perfect. Excellent.
Thank you.
Awesome, Alexis. I really appreciate it. That was great. Thank you very much. Right on.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thanks, Regina.
And next up, we've got RJ. Mr. RJ, please step up to the podium.
Hello, everyone.
So RJ, you wrote a great issue, but you also asked good questions.
Yeah.
And, I'm drawn to your questions first, if that's okay.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Awesome. So can you please just ask me the questions, because they're good.
Yeah, absolutely. So first question is, I'm just looking at my own questions here. So our team is pretty small, relatively. We're only 6. We're about to be 7. I'm hopefully hiring a community manager soon. But I run 2 companies. So to be clear, the team that I work with is responsible for both companies. The goal is to make one a client of the other, so then we can scale both. But anyway, my point is we're a small team, and up until now, obviously everyone reports to me. We have our weekly stand-ups every Monday. I'm able to get clear direction and vision from everyone. But now we're bringing in interns, and this is going to be the first time that I have people in my organization who I don't directly report to, who don't directly report to me. They'll be reporting to our head of marketing, who then comes to me. So I'll be honest, I've always said to my husband that this is the point that I've been always terrified of, because how I'm very, very, like, I'm a type A CEO. I'm very big on controlling our culture. So how can I maintain what I've built and the strong sense of camaraderie and communication and collaboration that I've built up to this point as I start to become further and further removed from those who are coming to work for me?
Perfect. What a great question. And I'm so glad you said it, because I understand it now completely differently than when I first read it. And it's not just following this methodology, but the sense of inclusion and making people feel heard and collaboration that you have with your team. You want to make sure that these new managers make their reports feel the same way. Is that right?
Exactly. Because I have this fear of being Netflix, of being in this company that people look to, and as a queer trans and supportive of trans people, seeing all of that and seeing the CEO do every horrible thing possible throughout the situation. That is my fear of building this, utopia of a company, and then something like that blindsiding me out of nowhere, and I had no way of even knowing that was something happening within my organization.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Okay, so there's a way you can pray, or you can verify, right. and I find that verify is much more effective. So I have this this here. I'll drop in two docs here to look at. They both can basically say the same thing. My way of making sure someone learns something is, first I show it to them. It's this teaching training doc. Let's actually, Regina, can you please open that one up? That way people can see it. It's a pretty straightforward process, but the first thing I do is I show everyone how I operate. Now they're already seeing it. If you're having team meetings and one-on-ones, people see how you operate. And then, but I also have people shadow me, like say, in that they're not on the receiving end, they're actually on the, I'm going to have them watch how I do a one-on-one with somebody else.
Okay.
Then after they watch me do a one-on-one with somebody else, so they're thinking in the mindset of the manager mindset, maybe they watch me do it 2-3 times. Then on the next time I say, okay, now you do the one-on-one and I'll watch you. And then I see how they operate, and then I give them feedback at the end, and then I'll maybe watch it a second time and then again give them feedback. And once they're to the point where they are doing it, they're making this person feel included and feel heard and collaborative and doing issues, proposed solutions, and whatever the tools are that I was using, they're using. And maybe, here's the great part, maybe they're actually innovating and doing things that are even better. And I'm now starting to learn back from them.
Yeah.
It's not super common, but it does happen. But whatever it is, I get to the point where I'm just like, you are crushing it. Now I can say, okay, now you take this one-on-one for the rest of time, because I have full trust that it's happening the way I would hope it to. And now I can go off and I never have to think about it again. It takes extra time because now I've got to manage that one-on-one for another 5 to 6 meetings before, extra. But the peace of mind that it creates for me is totally worth those extra 5 to 6 meetings. And the results have been phenomenal. Because without this, if I just drop someone into a situation and say, go, works out about 50% of the time. If I have them shadow me and then I shadow them and then they go, works out close to 100% of the time. And that 50% bump saves me so much time in the aggregate that it's totally worth doing.
Thank you. And what's funny is I've been doing that without even knowing that that's like a way to approach it. Our head of marketing, who's the person who's in charge, sits with me in every interview. We review every hire after. I talk extensively about my thought process and get his buy-in on each choice. So like we've naturally been doing that, and I didn't realize that there was already a thing for that. So that's good to know.
Awesome. I love it. All right, well, let's keep going because that wasn't your only good question.
Yeah, let's hop back because I don't have my thing up. So the other question, and this is something I worried about for a while, and actually I'm so happy because I can't remember who it was. I think it was Darpan brought up this. We are about to make the pivot from a service-based solution to a tech-focused solution and allowing our customers to self-serve. So it's going to be a major shift over the next 6 to 7 months from being service-based to being tech-based and data-driven. And I think that this is going to be a slightly unpopular decision because our team loves being so hands-on with our customers. So how do I handle that and avoid resentment and making choices that can be unpopular with the team, but are the best decision for us to be able to scale and work and continue to become what I envision to be a unicorn? So for us to do that, I have to make those kind of choices in the best interest of the company. How can I balance that and make sure that my team doesn't resent me for making a choice that goes against what they wanted?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you're never going to get there fully. You can just mitigate. You can't eliminate because they're going to feel fear, and they know what they know. They don't. The other is the unknown, and maybe also what you're alluding to. It may not be as fun for them.
Yes.
And that's a reality. And so the only thing is sort of and this is going to be a repetition, but I think it's worth repeating. One is you take that first step of say, hey, here's the problem that we're facing now. What do y'all think we should do? And solicit those opinions. They may all be keep doing the service-based business that we have now. That's totally okay. Yeah. Like a lot of people say, well, Matt, if we do this brainstorming, people all say we should do, step A, and I want to do step B. So if I get a chorus of everyone saying step A, won't that mean that when I do decide step B, everyone will be just like, what the hell? We all said we didn't want to do it.
Right.
And then you went ahead anyway. You're just a selfish bastard. And all you care about is your own thing. You don't care about any of us. Like, won't it make it even worse? And here's the odd thing. The odd thing is no, it doesn't. Because people really, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. But people really, my learning over time is they primarily want to feel heard. And they're okay. Like 80% of the value is hearing them. 20% of the value is agreeing with them. That's sort of like, those numbers are just, I'm making them up. But that's my impression over time, because I've been in this situation many times and I've collected people's feedback, and it's all go with A. And I acknowledge and I say, you really want us to stay as a service business. You really love being with the customers. And you're going to miss that interaction. And they're like, yes. And then I say, okay, do you feel heard? Yes, great. Now here's what I'm going to do. And we're going to go build a product, a self-service product. And here's why, because that's what scales. This doesn't scale. We want to build $1 billion company. This is never $1 billion company. And then they go, you know what? Okay. Yeah. I get it.
I'm happy you said that, and this might be slightly being vulnerable for a moment, but I've been friends with Regina for a while, and one of the things she first said to me when we started, getting to know each other was when she was interviewing with you. She said, "I want to make sure." Yeah, I know, I'm going there. She said, I told him that you don't have to take all of my ideas, but I want to make sure that my ideas are being heard and that I have a seat at the table. And your response was, Regina, you are the table. And that, it like blew me away. And this was like, only the second or third time that me and her were texting. And so I'm really happy that you said that, because that is the mentality that I want to be able to cultivate for my company. And so it's good to hear what you just said really helps me understand that mentality of, as long as my team is on board and understands why we're making a decision, even if they don't agree with it, they're at least going to be willing to follow us along with it and give it their all, not half-ass it, because they're like, oh, RJ just decided to do whatever. It's like, oh, okay, RJ believes in this. I trust RJ, so therefore I'm going to try it, even if I don't know if this is the right thing to do. So that's good to know. So thank you.
I'm gonna cry. Why did you say that?
Yeah, I had to go there.
Oh my gosh. And I'm just watching Anastasia's face right now, because Anastasia and I used to work together. And so she knows how important that is to me. And everyone's like, oh my God. Amazing.
Thank you for going there, RJ.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Right
Thank you,
on.
RJ. Are we ready to move on to the final guest, or do you have anything more, Matt?
I think that was great. I think, let's go to Greg. Thank you so much, RJ. That
Thank
was
you,
awesome.
RJ. Awesome. Greg, welcome up on stage.
Hello. It's hard to follow that.
Hey, Greg.
Hey.
Right on. So Greg, again, these questions are really good. And so I would say, let's again start with the questions, and then let's go back into the issue itself, if that's okay with you, because the questions are universal. The issue is more particular to you.
Yeah. So if I like the sort of like core question I'm grappling with is what you're saying.
Yes. Well, the question's in the main doc. You had to say like, so all makes sense, but a smaller team, buy-in is needed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's been, there we go. I had mine open, but yeah, so filling it out was very helpful. And sort of like the phrasing, the mirrored inverse phrasing of like, what did you do to create it? And then reversing it, I think made total sense in that document. A lot of the sort of broader things where I feel like, that a lot of, because we're small and everybody pretty much has, I think like one or many things, but they're unique. There's less of this like, we're gonna have meetings to talk about stuff and like less overhead. Overhead rooms. So that sort of resonated less, but the actual sort of process of filling this out did totally.
Right on. Yeah, it makes sense. Again, everything's easier with a smaller team. These techniques become critical when the team either goes remote or when the team starts getting beyond like 30 people in person. Really 25 is where I've seen things start to break down. Basically, and the rule I have is when you're 25 or less people all sitting in a room together, you overhear each other's conversations. And so the critical information path is, you as CEO, people need to know what your current priorities are so they can support those. And if they can overhear your conversations, they'll know what your current priorities are. You as CEO need to unblock your team. And if you can overhear their conversations, you'll understand what frustrations they're experiencing, what problems they're occurring, and you can go over to their desk and go, hey, I heard you had this problem over here. Boom, I can help unblock you. And you do. But as soon as you're more than 25 people, the people who are literally sitting on the outside can't hear your conversations and you can't hear theirs. So that information flow stops. And they don't know the priorities, so they start working on things that don't even matter. You don't know their problems, so you can't unblock them, so they can't even make forward progress. And the whole thing basically grinds to a halt. And the more people that get added, actually, the worse it gets. In a remote world, you have that problem from minute one, because again, there's no serendipitous overhearing of conversations. So for both of those situations, over 25 people in person or remote, you have to have a very formalized method of communication, which you share your priorities with people and they share their issues with you so you can unblock them. And that's really what this IPS gets to. But in a team of less than 10, and especially, are you guys in person or are you guys remote?
Remote.
Okay, well, then I guess you just spend more time with each person. So,
Yeah.
but they still need to spend time with you in one-on-ones and in team meetings. Everyone's part of the same team meeting. You don't have the next layer. So I guess that in the remote world, that's where it will start to happen. If there's
I guess maybe it's the word buy-in that triggered a thought, because like it's sort of, we almost, it's actually related to the thing I wrote about, but there's almost like too much randomness and like load per person of different tasks. And so there's sort of less of this like, team A is going to go off and build some product that doesn't resonate with team C kind of thing, because there's just more natural chaos. And so it's sort of like, for whatever reason, buy-in made me think of that first situation.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. So it sounds like everyone's got a ton. If a decision gets made, people are like, yes, great. I don't have time to worry about it or get upset about it because.
Yeah, occasionally there's like bigger picture stuff, but like, it's like, oh, sure. Okay, I'll do that. Fine.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Okay, well then let's go to a tougher question. Let's go to the next one. And then I think that, wait a second, or was that the next one?
That was the only question.
Oh, okay, great. All right, well then let's jump into the issue itself. And so can you please, and again, it looks like I haven't gotten a chance to respond to this one yet. I thought I did. But
9:20 a.m. I was 20 minutes late. So.
Oh, okay, great. That's my excuse. Woo! All right. So now, can you please? Then this will be truly live. This is great. So, so can you please verbally share with us, and I'll be reading as you're talking.
Yeah. So this is less of like interpersonal pain or anything like really. It's more of a potentially existential but slowly boiling kind of thing, which is that we're a nonprofit and the sector that we're in is in a cyclical downturn, not due, so like basically due to the calendar. And previously we've been in a cyclical upswing and have been very ambitious and set aggressive goals and like worked really hard. And there was always like a sense of, we may not hit those goals, but like there's more to do. There's always more to do. And I think this year with the downswing, there is like, it's literally not possible to do all those things to continue to grow. And our organization is very levered to the cycle. It's like, it's community dependent, takes like people caring. And so what I'm trying to think through is the fact that I don't know what the bounds of this will look like in the next couple of years. Let's say like 100 is the best it could be and 0 is like we have to shut down. I don't think it's 0, but it's for sure not 100. And I have no idea where in the middle we're going to end up. And so in terms of setting goals and like getting people motivated and setting, not having, let's say, this downturn continue, if we continue to sort of just erode a little bit, that like people don't feel dismayed by it happening, but can kind of say like this is where we are, things will turn around one day, or we have to reset the goals to reflect the sort of what's possible and not, and sort of like that difference between like what the beta of like the sector is doing and like what you're doing as an org to like change that fact or not. But it's sort of you can't go too far beyond what the like the cycle will allow us to do.
And Greg, I want to get into some specifics here, because otherwise it's impossible to fully react to. So is the issue of, hey, we're in a cyclical downturn, meaning we can't raise as much money or we can't have as much impact? Or is it both?
We can't raise as much money. It's politics. So like you can't raise as much money because the big election just happened and people aren't going to care, as much anymore. But they're not going to care 0. So it's like, but where does that? And then we do a lot of like community work with people like signing up to volunteer and help. That's another thing that's like very levered to how much does the world care about what we're doing. And so both on the raising money and the delivering services and hiring, they're all, like they're all linked to how much does the world care about what we're doing. And it's clear that it's a lot less than before, but not zero.
So let
And
me
it'll
understand that.
probably change again.
Yeah. So right now you think your goals, and what are these goals we're talking about? That are
Impact
probably
goals, fundraising goals, leading indicators of those.
and they include hiring goals?
Not like an OKR format, but something I think about in the back of my head.
But it's a spending money goal. Like we're willing to spend X dollars.
Yeah, like we're willing to spend X dollars and then like we could spend X dollars and make a bunch of commitments to do a bunch of impact work, and then like the community doesn't come through or donors don't come through because they don't care as much before.
Perfect.
And so there's just a lot of uncertainty as to like where all those things will end up, and they'll probably keep changing at quarter to quarter.
Okay, and then what is your proposed solution?
Proposed solution to, I think this is something people kind of know, we talk about occasionally, but I've not like made a system about talking about it regularly. And, setting some sort of forecasting structure, which I think will be based on some very vague straw man numbers, but like to put something in bounds so that there's a method for the team to like know at least what's going on or what we can tell what's going on. And then if we are able to do that successfully internally, then you could share that with the board or donors and kind of get in a better communication and systematic approach to it is what I came up with.
Okay, so it sounds like this is existential. If you get this wrong, if you try to do too much and then you don't raise enough money and you spend a whole bunch of money, then you run out of money and you fold up shop.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not really running things in a way that's too likely, but yes, if you exaggerate it, yes, that's like it could go that far.
Perfect. Well, let me ask you this: how much runway do you have?
Somewhere like 18 months, 24 months. But because I've been cautiously, like a lot of like aggressive plans from before got reduced down to make sure that we but like we're going into the phase over the next few months where we do have to decide how many people are we going to hire next year. And that's like, we're going to hire more than 0 people. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 8. And if I do the upper bound of that, then we're going to be much closer to that short runway, bad consequence.
Yeah.
World.
Perfect. I would say that you always want 12 months of runway because you never know when the world actually truly shuts down. And and how long have you been in existence?
4 years now.
Okay, so you have one full presidential cycle.
Yeah.
Under your belt of knowing what demand looks like and what impact you can have. Yep. So there is no question that you want to absolutely say, here's historically what's happened. Let's extrapolate this future looking and do scenario planning, which is if we have raised this much money and we spend this much money, here's the result. Just in finances, we don't know if the impact's going to work, but have a best case in fundraising, worst case in spending, worst case in fundraising, best case in spending meaning little, so that you see the two bounds of, in this scenario, we have 6 months of runway. In this scenario, we have 48 months of runway. And then simply make a collective decision, or you make the decision, but share with people what runway you're okay with accepting, and that's your buffer. And I would say 12 months is an absolute minimum. 18 to 24 months would make me feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Because
I think I do some of that, but I don't share it effectively. And so that's a sort of like thinking through this now is what, without freaking people out by showing the downsides, which could, I can make an extreme downside scenario that, results in running out of money very quickly. And I can also make a scenario where we don't. So it's sort of how to like manage that.
Okay, perfect. Now this is the essence of the question. I think what it is, Matt, I'm looking at these extreme scenarios so that I know what, or is that the case? Are you looking?
Yeah.
Okay. But I feel uncomfortable sharing this with the team because I don't want to scare them and freak them out and then have them all, then they'll quit because I think we're about to go under and then they'll go find another job somewhere else. Is that right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, great. Wonderful. This is fear talking. That's good. We know how to deal with fear. This is the exact, I mean, I'm going to bring up Reed Hastings at Netflix. He writes about this in their No Rules as well. The thing is that the people that work for you are no less intelligent than you. In fact, arguably, some of them are more intelligent. They're no less emotionally aware than you. In fact, arguably, some of them are more emotionally aware. You just happen to have more information than they do. You have a choice here. You can either treat them like someone who is not able to understand and handle this information as maturely as you can, and will have their amygdalas will spike and they'll feel fear and they'll feel anger and they'll act on that. Or, which is oftentimes the way we treat children, which by the way, I don't treat my children that way because I think children are even actually more emotionally aware. Or we can quote unquote treat them like adults, in which case we can share with them all the information that we have, trusting that they'll be able to understand it, and I'll explain it to them. Like, here's how I react to this information, here's why. And what I found is when I do that, people, A, feel tremendously respected. 2, they don't freak out. Instead, they feel a sense of calm because there's an opposite problem going on if I don't share this information. They're sitting there in their job thinking, I have no control over the decisions of how we spend, only the CEO does. And I'm seeing that we're in a cyclical downturn between presidential elections. And I'm seeing that we can't have the impact that we thought we would. We can't raise the money that we thought we would. And yet we're still spending like crazy and hiring more. Oh my God, this thing is running right into a cliff. And our CEO doesn't even see it because he never talks about it. So they're actually having the opposite fear. They're thinking that you're irresponsible, that you're blind, that you have no idea what's going on. And you need to allay that fear of theirs. And the only way to do that is say, hey guys, here's what I see. And as soon as they realize that you actually see how scary the situation is, then they're like, oh, thank God he actually sees the problem. Okay, good. Now he has a chance of doing something about it. But if they feel more fear than you do, if they see more danger than they think you do, then they're just going to go further into fear. How does that resonate?
That totally resonates. I don't think I'm not sharing it. It's over like, I don't think I'm not sharing it out of pure fear or think that people won't handle. It's more, it's like, seems like a very wide space problem to me. And I think people can definitely handle it. And I don't think there's like quite that thing. It's just more, I could do that. It could do that way. It could do this way. You could like set this like, super scenarios. And like, it just seems like very, very open. And I'm trying to, find the thing that I can mentally grab onto and say, oh, that I can do next meeting. That I can do, and
Okay.
And like kind of the prioritization of that. It's like it's existential, but it's also very long term.
That's totally okay. It's basically a long-term training of the company, of the information you're seeing and how you interpret it, and teaching them to be able to interpret the data that you're receiving. And you share it's like teaching them how to read financial statements. First, you teach them about the revenue line, then you teach them about the expense line. You don't do it all in one meeting. You spread it out over a curriculum. That makes complete sense to me. As long as the end goal is total transparency.
Yeah, resonates.
Awesome. Greg,
we're comments. I think that's RJ. Who's writing in there?
And the good news is that you can get all these comments later, and we don't even have to take time now during the synchronous meeting, and they're all available to you. So, so Greg, thank you. Let's wrap this up. And in the last few minutes of this meeting, let's go to what I think is the absolute most important part. And that is collecting feedback, because this, as we talked about before, this is the magic tool. This is, no matter what your performance is, if you collect feedback, you can massively improve and massively create trust. And I often, to Regina's, frustration, I'll often say, hey, Regina, let's try X. And she'll say, wait, we got to prepare. We got to make sure it's really good. And I'll say, you know what? No, let's just do it. It'll be total chaos. It'll be terrible, but then we'll collect feedback. And then based on the feedback, we'll improve it and it'll be great. And people will also feel like they participated in the improvement, they participated in the creation, which will make them even more bought in. And so it is nerve-wracking for those who want to see a really good result minute one. But if you're willing to have a kind of a crappy result in the beginning and just throw spaghetti at the wall, and you collect feedback, that's the key. You can't just throw spaghetti at the wall and then not collect feedback. But if you collect the feedback and then really listen to it and improve, I find you can move really quickly, get to a good result much faster, because there isn't a whole lot of preparation required. And so let's do it here. Let's keep doing it. We've done it the first 2 classes. Let's do it the third. Can everyone, Regina's on the part of the main doc. Yep. Can everyone please copy and paste that? Write in your feedback asynchronously, just so we don't have the page jump all over the place. Once you've written your feedback, please copy and paste it in. I'm going to try to do live at least a few bits of feedback, so that, because again, feedback is always much better if I can really fully understand. And for that, I need both written and verbal. But yeah, let's please do this.
Thanks, man. I still hate it, but we're going with it.
Right on.
So just to recap the instructions, right now we're at the part of feedback. So if everybody can jump over to the class document for today, October 28th, Trisha will drop the link into the chat. Again, if everybody can just copy this up here and paste that into a separate doc, fill it out. And then once you filled it out, if you can just paste your feedback down here, that would be awesome. We'll want to avoid editing directly on the page, just to not make the page jump all over the place. So whoever is, whenever you're done writing, just paste it in. So Darpan, if you wouldn't mind writing separately on a separate doc and then copying and pasting it there, so we can leave this as a template for everyone, that would be great. And Trish has just linked it into the chat. We'll give everybody about, what do you think, Matt, like 5 minutes?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great.
And then also I want to be cognizant that we said we'd end this meeting in 3 minutes. So if you need to go, please do drop off. You need to take, get outside, restore, bio break.
Stretch your legs before your next meeting. We're all about that.
Exactly.
Matt, Brian has a question for us, which is about the coaching job. And he's wondering if we're still accepting applications.
Yeah, so on the coaching job, I realized what I need to do is train people, and I'd like to train people, a lot of people. So we've actually shifted away from hiring coaches to now figuring out how we can train, and then from the people who we train, then hire coaches from that, or maybe even not even hire, just sort of refer out from that. And so we're not in the process of hiring right now. Like there's no, like, we're going to hire someone in 2 days. We're going through an interview process. No. Yeah. Instead we're going through this. I mean, this is really it, what we're doing here.
So Nasser, you didn't fail anything. You're here. This is the coaching training.
Exactly.
I'm just pointing that out. Everybody here is not only getting coached live, but also learning how Matt does it. And I think Matt is a big proponent and believer in learning by observing and then doing on your own. So that's what this is.
Yes, exactly. So everyone here has been accepted into coach training because this is it. This is coach. Right on.
Alexis wants to know, so are we assistant coaches?
You're definitely assistant coaches. You're adjunct coaches.
Awesome.
Right. Okay, we're getting some folks in the doc. This is great. So I'm gonna read yours, RJ.
RJ. RJ writes that he's gonna update his LinkedIn profile.
Perfect. Awesome, RJ. That's great to hear. And then that's a great feedback, RJ. So I think what you're saying is, hey, Matt, give everyone equal opportunity, have Regina track it, and then she can give you a note when someone, saying, hey, there's 2 minutes to go. Is that right, RJ?
Yeah, you got a thumbs up. And
awesome.
Just so he knows, I was. but
I wasn't
Matt,
necessarily, I didn't necessarily respond to it, but Regina was doing it. But we'll have her do that, and I'll be better about responding when she sends me those notices going forward.
I planned it and everything, RJ. I had the messages teed up, ready to go. 2-minute warnings, giving everyone heads up. And Matt is a man who does.
I know you, and I know for a fact you had like a list, like on another monitor, like.
Oh my! I feel so seen right now. Thank you.
Right on.
Brian has a very interesting question, which is, what is the KPI of this coaching program for you, Matt?
That's a great. We don't have one. That's a great question. We need to develop one. I'm certainly open to taking suggestions on what that KPI should be. It's a great question. Yeah. I'll have to go. First, I encourage people to drop in what they think the KPI should be. And then second, I'll then take those in. Regina and I'll take those in, and we'll go think about it and come back with one. Great. RJ's great suggestion. And then I do want to jump over to Luke's comments over here. So Luke, this is great that you saw that it was useful to see IPS applied. And yeah, I agree with you that Regina, when she jumped in and said, hey, whoa, let's have the person summarize what this issue is verbally before we jump straight in. That was more effective. I completely agree. It was also like, I took the time to pre-read and pre-watch, but you guys didn't have the time to do that. So I agree we'll do that from now on. So thank you. And let's get Luke on so I can talk to him direct. Luke, is that what you meant?
Here, I'm pulling you up right now. Give me a quick second. Bear with me. Managing lots of different things. Luke is up.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, exactly what I meant. And important, I think pre-reading your stuff is really great, but if it's also everyone else's context or their Loom videos, it's probably too much pre-read homework compared to if we summarize the core bits for it.
Perfect. Okay, great. And then sounds like, so I agree to that. I accept that. So we will, whenever we do issues, proposed solutions, we'll have people summarize them before we jump into the coaching, or even if people have questions, we'll have people say the questions before I jump into the coaching. And then it sounds like on the next one, that we probably went a little bit too far. And last time we sort of spent time on answering questions, and now we just did all live coaching on issues, but we didn't keep any space for responding to questions about the pre-reads. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess for my one, I didn't have a specific question which I felt I wanted to run through in front of everyone live. And so therefore there wasn't a space for specific questions for pre-read.
Perfect. So I think what I'm hearing you say is, Matt, going forward, have us have pre-reads that we can ask questions about and explicitly ask us to ask questions about that. And separately, if we want to submit an issue that we get live coaching on, separately allow people to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Perfect. Okay, I accept. We will do that. Thank you. And then I think you said it would have been great to talk to a real rapid. It was hard to identify with some of the IPSs, although not sure what the solution there is. So when you say identify with some of the IPSs, meaning
this is separate points.
Oh, got it.
The rapids, yeah.
Okay, got it. Through a real rapid. Okay. And when you say talk through a real rapid, meaning like grab one from Coinbase from 3 years ago, or?
Well, there was live coaching on the issue proposed solutions, but not on the rapids. And so that felt a key bit of the pre-read, which was not then touched in the live session.
Got it. Okay, but let me clarify something then here. A real rapid is just a matter of degree. So like an issue proposed solution is intended to be like 1 or 2 pages maximum. That's it. And then if you can't get to a resolution there, then you go, you know what? We really need a much more thorough document. you assign someone to go really research both the issue and the proposed solution, write out a much lengthier thing, although you definitely want to cut it off at 6-page limit, which is the Amazon limit, which I agree with. And then you also in the rapid add another and really carefully identify who needs to see this document and who needs to input. And then you add another layer, which is this agree person. And this is someone who gets to veto, which I think is a very dangerous position to have, because now you have a decision maker and you have people who can veto. That kind of like obviates the entire point of having a decision maker. And so I actually am really skeptical about this part. I think people use the agree way too much. I think it should be in very rare situations used, like you're a crypto company, you're about to launch a new financial product and the CEO is a decision maker, but you make the general counsel agree because if the CEO breaks the law, then the CEO will go to jail. And so but even in that situation, I think I wouldn't even make the general counsel agree. I would say the general counsel gives their input and then the CEO decides whether or not they want to take the risk of creating a financial product that is not currently approved by the SEC. And that may or may not be, because that may be a business decision because all the other competitors are doing it. So even though it seemed like we didn't go over rapid, we actually did, because the IPS is simply a slightly truncated form of a rapid. There's no real difference between the two, except the rapid is longer and may include a little more specificity around the roles. Does that answer the question or not really?
It does. It's extra useful context. I don't think it's probably would have given the same level of quality compared to, you know, say you had planned out like 10-minute deep dive on a particular one, or common mistakes, or you know, other things where we gained all this extra context by, I think what you said has added extra color.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, actually, the way to walk through a real rapid is to do it in group, because that's actually a key piece that we didn't do here, is showing how a decision maker or facilitator manages the group interaction. Right now, it's just one person coming and me responding, which is super easy. But what do you do when you have 8 people putting in comments? How do you then acknowledge all 8? How do you then, what are the steps you go to actually declare the decision? So maybe we do that next.
I actually want to highlight Sydney's feedback over here, where he said it would be awesome if everybody could just go through a document together and take 3 minutes to share our thoughts. So it's almost like a group coaching session too. I think that's potentially an easier way for us to do this, because everybody here is mostly strangers. And so we're not an exec team. So until we get an exec team here and everybody has shared context on the issue, I think it's harder for people to all chime in, but this would be a great way for everybody to learn how to coach together. So
sounds great. Let's do that in the next one. I love it.
Awesome. Matt, I want to be cognizant and respectful of people's times. It is already 59, and so we're 1 minute to the hour. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and being here. Hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Take care now. Have a good one. Bye.